So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
I'm trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Cannabis and Coffee with me, Tamarijuana. Well, it's a beautiful day in the East Kootenays. We are gearing up for 420 across the country this week. Friday, we're going to have celebrations everywhere. Vancouver 420, Toronto, Edmonton, Calgary. I believe there's one in Lethbridge, Halifax. Wherever you are, Hamilton, Windsor. It's incredible this year, the numbers that are popping up across the country. The last few years, we've all kind of been a little bit scared. This year we're heading into, legalization or prohibition 2.0 or whatever you want to call it. But we're heading into the cusp of things changing for us. So I believe that the 420s this year are going to be extremely epic. Ottawa 420, I can't wait to see what's going to be going on the Hill this year. I know Russ and Christine are actively involved in that 420 this year, so kudos to you guys, kudos to Dana Larson and Cindy out at the West Coast and everybody that's involved. I can't even name the people that are involved. This morning, I'd like to introduce you to Brynn Jones. I'm not sure if many of you know who he is or if you've had contact with him. He's involved with some of the LIFT conferences that have been across the country over the last few years. He's also the director for Cannabis for Children Canada. He's also the CEO for Mariceuticals Inc. and the president and dispensary owner of Brynn Corp. And also a firefighter. So good morning, Brynn. Welcome to Cannabis and Coffee with me.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
So I guess the first question we're going to ask you is usually what I ask most of my guests are, who are you and why did you get into cannabis?
Well, I moved to Kelowna about 25 years ago, and it was a very different culture, very open cannabis culture here. And I started working with palliative care nurses who were faced with families who were using cannabis to treat their elderly and dying parents, and felt that they had the right to continue to use that as a medicine when they went into places like the long-term facilities or to the final facilities. And, of course, the local authorities and the government and stuff at the time during that prohibition, they weren't ready to accept that or to really, let that happen. But the nurses, the people who were there, who were interacting with the individuals, particularly towards the end of their life, saw the amazing things that it was doing for them, even if it was just a quality of life issue. And I worked with them, and they started to teach me about what they saw about it. And together we started to work with these families to do this. And from there, I've been attached in one way or another to the culture here in Kelowna. And now it's changed into something that has gone across the country. And I think it's incredibly important that we share the information we have to fight what was prohibition, what was the control of information, and what was control of access.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we're still fighting with is, actually access. Because even in the day and age that we're coming to with, legalization and the fact that we do have a medical program in Canada, we still have a doctor gateway issue. We still run across doctors all over this country. In fact, we have a 5% rate of doctors that are actually signing for the I guess it's the ACMPR now. But that being said, do you find in Kelowna that you've got more access to doctors? Because I know out here we don't.
Oh, no, absolutely not. I worked with the industry to try to bridge a gap there. you have to work with the players that are involved. I think everybody has a role to play, so we can't be infighting with each other. And one of the opportunities that I got is to open a one-to-one small medical cannabis consultation clinic here, where we can take advantage of the private medical system and get people access that they wouldn't normally have. And we can use telemedicine rules in different provinces to get to rural areas that people don't have. So I started the Green Phoenix Cannabis Consulting Clinic in Kelowna, and this is one of the ways. There are some clinics, there are some doctors, as you say, but there always seems to be some kind of catch to it. It's really important that when we make decisions for our own health, that we're able to get the information that we want, that we don't just have a 10-minute Skype meeting with a doctor that you never see, that there's an actual clinician there for you to talk to and to give your concerns about. And that's part of what we've been fighting for so long is this has always been a community. And now as we move forward, we still feel like it should be that community. But the big corporations, the way that big healthcare works, it's not, it's very separated. And, in Kelowna here, you would think that we would have all these things. And even in Vancouver, I know there's not enough, there's plenty, but there's not enough doctors. I know that in the beginning of this year, the College of Physicians has released the guidelines for cannabis prescriptions, which is new to them, to 30,000 doctors across Canada. But I also know enough doctors that come to me and ask me about cannabis as a medicine or cannabinoid therapies because they were never taught and they don't know. And they feel that if they make a poor decision, they're letting their patients down.
Well, I know my doctor here in Cranbrook actually signed me the first year when it took me 9 months to get her to sign me. She told me when I went to get my new renewal here in February that the BC College of Physicians have advised them that they are not to sign any medical marijuana licensing because legalization is coming, and the 30-gram limit that we would be able to handle per day would be far more than they would be prescribing. The maximum that they are going to be allowed to sign is 3 to 5 grams, period. And it'll be for 3 subjects only: MS, cancer, and arthritis. And this came straight out of my doctor's face. So when I went to get my renewal for my ACMPR in February, I was denied by my GP.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? Like this is not making things better for patients. And another thing that's not making things better for patients is patients, because of their entitlement, believing that they have more right and access to this recreational market that's coming up. They're making it more difficult for everybody, because in reality, everything is medicinal. And I wish the patients would quit realizing and quit stating that they are more entitled to cannabis than anybody else is, because of the doctor gateway. And that's where I like to get into the whole doctor gateway theory, because we have people across this country that come probably to you, to myself, to hundreds of other people that are out there advocating for cannabis, and add the medicinal end to it. And then they think that they've got more right to it. And I'm sorry, people, you don't have any more right to it just because you have a doctor that is on board, or because you paid a doctor to sign your ACMPR. Let's be clear, people. These clinics are not free. These doctors are not free. They are charging anywhere upwards of $300+. If you're going to a clinic that's charging you $25, they're bottlenecking you to the corporation. So this is my, and this is my biggest bitch right now. If you're a patient expecting entitlement, you're part of the fucking problem. And I'm going to put this right out there, because I'm a patient. I use cannabis for medicinal reasons. I use cannabis for whatever reason I choose to use it for. My neighbor across the street can't get a doctor's signature. I'm one right now that cannot get a doctor's signature. Doesn't make me any less medicinal than I was in 2011 with an MMAR. But some entitled patient out there is going to tell me that they have cancer and they have more fucking entitlement to it than I do. Sorry, wrong answer for this cannabis activist. You are part of the problem, people. Anyways, that's my rant for the moment, because that just pisses me off because of this whole, Go ahead.
It's really difficult. It's really difficult to make the proper strides in this. When we do manage to make a step forward, something happens that pulls us back. And I believe that misinformation and disinformation is the biggest thing. Patients are being told that they have these rights, and the people like you and I who fight and believe that everyone should have equal rights and equal access to it feel differently. And these schisms are what our opponents use to break us down and to keep us separated. And it worked for 100 years almost. But
it absolutely does.
we have an opportunity now for us to speak our voices. The internet has given us a way to have, like, for example, this show where we can express ourselves and we can do what needs to be done. And, I even myself, I'm not sure that the opportunities that I can create are the best ones, but we're doing the best we can for the people in the situation, and we're trying to be fluid. I honestly believe that when the new recreational market comes out and these new stores open, that it's going to be the Miller Lite of cannabis. There's going to be nothing there, regardless of how much you can buy, which is going to be $600 an ounce or something insane like that. No matter how much you can buy, it may not be adequate for your needs. If you are a person who, to loosely use the term, is a chronic user or a long-term user of, say, a higher quality, you might as well just give it up. Because you are not going to get anything out of it. The patients are going to get nothing out of it. It's going to most likely be pre-milled crap because, the regulations are going to base they're going to base it on tobacco and alcohol laws, which they've already said. And we know those laws are flawed. And we know the fact that things like, tobacco has become a poisonous, deathly substance, but it didn't start that way. And cannabis is it's going to fall in the same direction. And we have to stand up together. We have to do our things, And I found that when I started to make myself more public and more into, the scene, I found that people were asking me questions, and they weren't getting any answers. I set up a booth at the first Live show to show that there was more than just these large corporations and companies that wanted to sell you things, that there were people out there, small companies, activists, people willing to just share. I wasn't selling anything. I put my own money out. We were sponsored by other groups they put their own money out to have a presence there. And we didn't expect to finance off of people. We honestly felt that it was important that if there's going to be a large event like that, an introduction to cannabis in the mainstream, that we be identified and talk about what we do as well. And we had over 5,000 people come to the booth and talk to us. I lost my voice. And they all told us the same thing. No one is giving any information.
Right. And that's exactly what happened, has happened over the years, is we've had so many breakdowns between, trying to leap forward into a legal market where all these smaller companies have come up, believing that they're going to get into this, different marketplace that we've got. And then you have patients going, well, what about us? And I understand that, like 110%. I understand the patients have fought. They got their rights back in, in the late 90s. They've got a program, but they've got the program to protect them. And that program is probably it's being rolled into the Cannabis Act. But we can't, I just don't understand where you figure that you can break down that line. And I think that's the worst part about this whole avocation and activism is where we've come. We've come full circle to a point where you've got people arguing with each other in infighting over their basic need. We all have needs. We all have rights. We all should, and that's the thing. Another thing we have to point out, cannabis is not a right, people. It's a privilege, just like a driver's license. Mm-hmm. You apply for a licensing just like you do for a driver's license. It's not your right. It's your privilege. And I say this too to other people, and I know it kind of pisses people off, but I don't give a shit. Diabetics don't get free insulin all the way through. Right. Some medical coverage does not cover their insulin. If they don't have insulin, they will die. If you don't have cannabis, sorry, people, you're not going to die. Some children and some people use cannabis, and it does, alleviate having to have that pharmaceutical. But if you don't have cannabis, you're not going to die. There are some medications out there that are not covered by any health plan that if you don't get it, you're going to die. And there are people out there that have to suffer with that. So that's, and I'm an advocate for cannabis. I have been for 10 years. I'm a patient myself. I'm just, I don't know, Brynn, are you tired of hearing that there's other patients out there that feel like, there was a poll yesterday on Facebook. I think that's what's got me so riled up about, do you feel as a patient whether you have more right than a recreational user? What the hell's a recreational user? Just because they don't feel the need to go run and get a doctor's signature doesn't make them recreational. I don't know. What's your take on that?
There's a statement too that people make a lot, that there's no such thing as a recreational user, that all use is medicinal. Absolutely. There's for me, when I started out as a young person, it was to deal with some terrible things that were going on in my community and the stresses of it. And most of my friends turned, as we sort of dealt with that, turned to alcohol and drugs. I used cannabis. It was a scary time. And we all have to have a vice. And if we can have a vice such as cannabis that can, help us and help us relax and help us deal with what's going on, we don't have to turn to something that is addictive and controlled. That addiction is controlled. And again, you're not going to die without it. For me, it was a great benefit. But as I move forward, I use it more for things like, Crohn's and those types of things. But it's become part of my medicine. But I don't believe that when I was smoking it, then, I mean, the first time I was introduced to it was definitely in a recreational sense. Was, hey, how would you like to try this? How would you like to feel it? But the experience that I had with it was pleasurable and relaxing, and the next day I didn't feel ill, and that itself was a therapy. So I chose to continue with it.
Yeah, and I think that's what people have to understand. It's therapeutic. It's a therapeutic. And that's something you can go to your health food store and use. You can use, garlic and ginger also therapeutically. It shouldn't be classified the way it has been. I think that's where we're at with the stigma, with the whole stigma of it. On that note, we're going to take a quick break. I'd like to thank my sponsors, who are 12 High Chicks Magazine, MUM, the Maritimers United for Medical Marijuana, Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners, the Haley Rose Foundation, and we got a new song sent in to us, The Weed Guy by Blackie Jacket Jr., and we'll be listening to that. We'll be right back.
The following is a public service announcement from the Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society. The Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society is a non-profit organization dedicated to ensuring improved access to therapeutic cannabis and cannabis byproducts in Canada. With a federal government that has committed to legalizing cannabis, we feel it is our duty to ensure that the medicinal use of cannabis doesn't get lost in the process and that there are clear distinctions made between the medicinal and recreational use of cannabis. It is our mission to ensure that government regulation doesn't get in the way of a sick, disabled, or terminally ill person's right to use or produce this amazing natural health product. If you would like to get involved, you can contact us on the internet, www.canadiantherapeuticCannabisPartners.com, on Facebook, CTCP Society, or search Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners.
My night is coming to a standstill. I'm running out of things to do. I'm strumming my guitar by the phone, just waiting for the weed guy to come through. Listen to my fill of old 45s. Done had my last swig off my bottle of rye. Now all I wanna do is get more high. Yeah, I watch my fill of trash TV, and then I mosey on over to where I roll my weed. 'Cause now all I wanna do is get more high. But silly old me, I smoke myself dry, and I'm waiting on the weed. Hit me, taught him how to be strong, and then they taught him how to rip a fucking bong. He's the weed guy.
All right. And we are back with Brynn Jones. We were discussing a little bit about what he does over the break. So, Brynn, you were talking about cannabis for children. So let's introduce people to that, because that's a fairly new group to Canada, right?
Yeah, it was founded not long ago by a lady called Alyssa Lee in Ohio, and she is a cannabis patient and a cannabis mom. And she started the organization. And just through my activities on Facebook, we connected one day, just in discussion, pretty much the same way that you and I connected. And she started talking about this organization. I was like, wow, do you have this in Canada? Are you guys looking to come into Canada? And they didn't have an answer to that. So I took it upon myself. I have some proficiency with making, basic websites and doing some public speaking and those kinds of things. And I was like, look, let me give it a try. And we've managed to, over the last couple of months, get ourselves set up and get our donation and taxation things all set up. And now we're ready to do our thing in Canada. And the objective of Cannabis for Children is to support families that are looking for support and answers. And hopefully we're hoping to get to connect to doctors eventually. We're really looking to make those connections and to work with, again, the players that are out there to make sure that if people do choose to make the right choices, or not necessarily the right choices, but the choices for their children for things that they believe is right, that they're getting a safe product, which is detrimental, and B, they're getting the right information. Their parents, they're freaked out. They feel like they've been through the system. Nobody comes to us because it's the first thing that they do. They come forward because they're frustrated, because they feel like they're not getting answers, or they're not getting the medicine or help that they need. And they turn to cannabis for this because of its reputation of being natural. And how many times have we seen even the large corporations, take something natural and add something poisonous to it? I'm sure private growers have that opportunity too. We still live in that you have to know your guy situation. And there's very little in the way of support for somebody, if you want to be a canna parent, to be open about it and say, look, how do I help my child? Or I am doing this way to help my child. And I think this is a great way to do it. I think this is a great way to show support without anybody having to be the pariah of it. And I know the doctors and I know the parents have been, ridiculed because, how dare we take something that is being presented to us now as a vice, with our vice stores where we're going to go pay vice taxes on it. Why would we ever give that to children? And just because things have changed in this way doesn't mean that that's right. That if this can be helpful, it doesn't matter if you are 90 or 9, that you have access or information at least. And like I said, parents are going to make the best choice that they can. But as a canna parent myself, I have to say that I was faced with a wall. Do I be honest about it or not? How do you do that? And it's all about unity and helping. We're not looking to make a profit in any way off of this. It's all about communication. That's the biggest thing. And if it needed a face and needed someone to stand up and talk about it, I will do it. And there are people stepping up in each province. We've got a British Columbia chapter and a Nova Scotia chapter now. We're going to have our first booth to do this. Our team leader, Robin, in Nova Scotia, has been invited to the MUM event. this summer, and the Harvest Cup, and fantastic. There it is. There's an example of every part of our community coming together. And so far, we've done this with very, very little money. Because that's not the basis. We don't need a big flashy booth. We don't need, a giantly paid CEO to do this. Everybody's already kind of involved in something, and this is something that they're doing as well, or on the side, because they believe in it. I was contacted by a company yesterday who just out of blue said, "We believe what you're doing is totally essential. How do we help you?" And I think that we've actually done it. We've created something that is going to hopefully help people and has attracted enough attention, and I'm proud and honored to be part of it.
That's excellent. Well, there are many children across the country that already are using cannabis oil. I think Haley Rose was our first child that was ever licensed in Canada. Her mom, Cheryl Rose, in fact, the Haley Rose Foundation is one of our sponsors for the show. And Cheryl has been working diligently with Dr. Hornsby for the last, Haley's just turned 25. So for the last 12 years on trying to get her, still without seizures and trying to, get her manipulated down to what exactly she needs. And they still are struggling with that too, because everything, changes. The plant changes, our metabolisms change, the plant, metabolizes different every time. So having that being said, a lot of people believe that it's all CBD that these kids are using, and newsflash, some of them are using 10 to 1, which is 10 points
Absolutely.
of THC to a 1 point of CBD. So it's not all about CBDs, people. Again, THC is being used by children. Now, within the new legislation, they're actually, you're not allowed to sell to a minor, but if a minor is caught with cannabis, it's going to be a fine, kind of like being caught with booze, right? Like it's not, and they're allowed to have up to 5 grams, which, a lot of people are appalled by that. They think that that it should be harsher, that kids shouldn't have any access. Well, let's be real. Kids have got access now to it. They are going
Absolutely.
to jail and having alternative measures and getting criminal records for it. This new legislation will at least, I'm not saying allow them, but, make it so that if they've got 5 grams or less, they're not going to end up with a criminal record, which will be the first thing that I think is beneficial with this. Now, parents, on the other hand,
they're still being punished for it, though.
Absolutely. And that's not right either. But the parents, on the other hand, is what I'm saying. If you get caught giving your child cannabis, you're subjected to 14-year jail sentencing. So
Absolutely.
That's where the parents are scared, because they've been scared enough as it is to even go to their doctor. I know Sarah had a huge issue when Maya was, having to get another prescription in Calgary, the Alberta Children's Hospital. The doctors refused to sign it after they had signed it before. And there's been many issues with children getting access to cannabis in this country over the last 10 years. Thankfully, we have parents like Cheryl, like Sarah, like, Mandy McKnight, that stand up for their children and say, look, this is working for our children and we're not stopping. Same with Supernova's mom. Same with Erin down in the States with Michaela there. Like, these parents have stood firm and said, fuck you. I'm giving this to my kid. I'm not going to have my child die. And
Absolutely.
you sent this child home to die anyways. And I think this is what I say to a lot of my cancer patients too. It's unfortunate that this is not a first choice, that it's always a last resort. I lost another patient here this week already because we had given her, she was sent home to die, and we had sent her home with the oil. Sorry, her family, her daughter refused to let her use it because of the stigma that went along with this. This woman was 70 years old and she had a tumor that was in her lung, and they sent her, this was a last option for her. And then her family still stopped her. This woman died on Monday. I'm sorry, but it's just to see the stigma that still goes along with this plant, that people still die because somebody in their family doesn't believe that it's something that they should do, yet you're dying. What is wrong with people? Like, what's wrong with you people? Like, seriously, it's not a last resort. It should be a first line of defense. It just pisses me off that so many people, because of what we've been taught for the last 70 years about pot, is that it's bad, that it's not good for you, that it's an addiction, it's a gateway to harder drugs, that all the lies that they've been feeding us. And now they're coming around saying, well, we're going to legalize it and we're going to tax it, but we're still going to put a crime on it. So it's really not legalized at all.
Oh no,
What the
absolutely
fuck?
not. It's more illegal. It's more illegal now, or it will be more legal than it has ever been. It's insane. I have faith in the fact that when people begin to experience what they have agreed to, what they think, what they've agreed to let the politicians put into place, I think they're going to be sorely disappointed with what it is.
I think that people that have been afraid of cannabis are going to get subsidiary crap coming out of a licensed producer because they're going to cap the THC levels on stuff and cap the oil levels on stuff. Here's another one. Okay, you got cannabis in extraction. If a plant is at 28% THC, in order to get that oil down to 3% THC, you have to fill it full of cut. You got to fill it full of glycerin. You got to fill it full of fucking who knows what, vitamin E or whatever, to lower that cap down, because it doesn't matter, people. If the plant's 28% THC, the extract's going to be 28% THC, and they're going to be cutting it. Put that into your lungs.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And there it is. But the rules to do that are already in place. There's not even a protection set up for us, because the rules to do that are already there. They're already part of the Tobacco Act. They're already part of the Alcohol Act, and they're going to use those. I worked in the liquor industry for years. I know exactly what we're about to see.
Are you not going to want to thank the people that helped them get there? Like, I'd like to thank the people that used to work beside us that are now helping the licensed producers fuck us. And that's exactly how I feel about it.
There are a few situations there that do seem odd. Like, look at the people who are in charge of all this. Like, who the licensed producers have hired. In particular, our CMP officers that have become drug czars and then become cannabis CEOs or large members. I don't get it. How can I be told that by the very same people that set those laws in place that I was a crook and that I'm a terrible person, that all of a sudden they're okay, that everything's okay? Back then you were bad, but now you're good. And we feel the same way. So we're going to take over everything so you don't hurt yourself.
I know, right? I know. It's ridiculous. It's appalling at this point. So back to your group. So you're launched, and you're launching at the Harvest Fest. Is that you're going to be your kind of your launch out at Harvest Fest? Or are you guys launching somewhere else? Or?
Yeah, no, I guess so. We've got our presence online. I built the website, cannabisforchildrencanada.org. We are associated with cannabisforchildren.org, which is the United States chapter. And just by opportunity and by connection, again, with my work on Facebook, being a public figure, we've been given an opportunity by the organizers of MUM to have a booth and to get a chance to get it out there. And it's going to be our first actual go at it. But I just started this a couple of months ago, or maybe even less than about a month ago. So I'm really, really impressed that we've gotten the traction that we have. And yeah, we're going to be, I guess, launching for our first time. We'll have a rep in the MUM event, and we'll hopefully have some supporting things for them, but at very least someone to talk to, someone so that parents can come to and realize you're not alone.
That's excellent. Yeah, we plan on being out at Harvest Fest too. The whole Lifestyle Radio crew. I promised Deb I'd be out there. I promised her that last year too. And this year I'm really trying hard to get out to Harvest Fest, because it's something that, it's a Don Cook Memorial Cup. And they have been doing this for the longest time. I think they pretty much are like kind of pioneering in the Cannabis Cup kind of thing. They just started with the cup, but as far as having something in Nova Scotia for a camp out with vendors and entertainment and everything, they pull it together, and it's always a good time, and I don't want to miss it, because let's face it, like, I'm not saying that next year's going to be different, but with Prohibition 2.0 in the mix, I'm not sure what the future looks like as far as our events and our parties and stuff go. I'm having a Kootenai Cannabis Cup this year too. I wasn't going to, and then I thought, this might be the one opportunity that we have to kind of get it together before legalization comes to play. So we're doing a Kootenai Cannabis Cup out here as well, but that's not till after Harvest Fest. So we'll plug Harvest Fest first, as well as So I spoke to you too a little bit about 420s, and Kelowna doesn't have one. We don't have one here in Cranbrook. What's your plan for 420? What are you going to do?
I'm going to try to support the events going on. We were working with Yellowknife to do their 420 event. Unfortunately, the people that were doing that moved away, so it looks like it's going to be a quiet 420 for me this year. I'm really going to save my efforts for next year when it looks like a 420 event is going to be a major problem. It's going to be a very serious illegal act to do a 420 event or to have a celebration of cannabis in an unlicensed, unregulated, promoting independent business and craft producers. It's all of a sudden going to become a protest the way it was. I'm interested to see, I love Vancouver. I love the 420 event. I'm glad to see where it's gone, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens next year with the event. So
that's what I mean. That's where I kind of was wondering about the future of our events, because like you said, it's going to be regulated. So even with packaging, the way they're packaging cannabis, with no branding, I know that it's going to be touch and go as far as whether we're going to be able to have these events. Do you think we're not going? You think they're going to shut us down? We'll talk about that when we come back. We're going to take another quick break, and we'll come back and talk to Brynn about what we think the future of 420s and our global marches and stuff are going to be at. So again, I'd like to thank my sponsors, who are MUM, the Maritimers United for Medical Marijuana. Harvest Fest is coming up July 24th, 25th, 26th. Get your entries in to Deb, and you can get a hold of her at chair@mum.ca. I'd also like to thank my other sponsors, who are 12 High Chicks Magazine, the Haley Rose Foundation, and the Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society. Our song is going to be Hornsby Bronx, Free Child. We'll be right back after that.
Tune into the Pace Radio Show as we talk to Canadian and international cannabis advocates who are working hard to help patients and to end cannabis prohibition. Catch us live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here at lifestyleradio.ca.
Hey, this is Cheech.
And this is Chong.
And you're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
What is it?
Lifestyle Radio. Say it one more time.
420 Radio?
Ooh.
Hang up and try again.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Who decided this life?
I can't remember now. All right. And we were talking, I think, a little bit about the fact that 420s and how we were going to see how the 420s were going on in the future. And we were both saying, like, in Kelowna, they don't have one. Cranbrook, we can't really do one here either because the parks are full of swings and little kids. And, you want to keep it respectful. We do a global marijuana march. But do you think that they're going to change things, Brynn, for next year? Like, do you think they're going to shut us down? Or do you think there might be police presence this year?
Yeah, well, as we were discussing over the break, we're definitely going to have a police presence at some of the events. Places like Ontario are very much into the control and into the remove the protests and remove the dispensaries mode. I think that in Vancouver, we're going to definitely see a lot of police maybe more observing what's going on to prepare for next year. I think next year that there is going to be an action of some kind, that it will turn back into a protest as opposed to an event. And maybe that's where it needs to go, but I think that people are probably going to get arrested, possibly this year, for sure next year. I think that it's going to bring a lot of spotlight. I think the politicians are going to use the opportunity to say, hey, look, we're enforcing these laws, and this is a necessary part of laws if we're going to have them to enforce them. And it's going to go back to that. Be quiet. Here's your pack of pre-rolled, pre-milled whatever you're going to get, and be happy we let you have it. When you're the ones who vote for these people.
Right. I know it's almost disgusting to me because here we were thinking it was going to be more of a celebration, like right on. And like I said, let's face it though, I'm not unpleased to all points of this new legislation. Like 10 years ago, we had a conservative government that wasn't even talking about anything. We were talking about, mandatory minimum jail sentencings for one joint, you know what I'm saying? And now, we still have BLC 51 sitting on the books, but it's been, going to be I don't know what they're going to do with that now because of the Terrorist Act and everything else that goes along with that. But in hindsight, when we had Stephen Harper sitting in power, we were scared to even say the word cannabis because you might get, tackled in a park kind of thing, right? At least we're coming to the point where, like I said, for the average citizen in Canada, all they are hearing is they can pack 30 grams, they can grow 4 plants, and they're not going to get busted for a joint. So to the average Canadian, they think this bill is terrific. To the rest of us that know, that are medical patients that have had plant counts and 10 gram a day or plus prescriptions, and they're going to roll that out into a Cannabis Act so that we don't have that ability in 5 years, that's scary. So I think that's where we're getting to the point where we don't know which angle this is going. Like I said, I sat at the legalization roundtables in December in Vancouver with Health Canada and heard what they had to say. The fact that they're taking some of the vaulting and stuff away from the licensed producer, they're peeling back the onion and allowing micro-crafting and micro-processing to come forward, is in hindsight positive aspects. But how much regulation are we going to have attached to that and taxation attached to that? And as we were talking over the break, the BC government, hello people, have not said what they're going to do out here. We have a huge union, liquor control board ran by the union. If you think that union is going to let people have private stores, think again.
Oh, absolutely.
So in BC, don't think we're going to have the free-for-all that everybody thinks, oh, BC, biggest industry, they've had it going on for so long, we got dispensaries on every block. No, we don't. We've had Kelowna been asked to be shut down. Vernon's sent letters out to shut down. Cranbrook will not allow one. Kimberley only has 2, and I believe that they're going to be shut down as well. Fernie won't allow one. Sparwood won't allow one. Creston has one that apparently has started, but are also getting, pushed around by the RCMP out there in Erickson. They don't want it opening until, the whole province comes out with actual legislation. So that being said, we haven't heard anything from our, whatever you want to call it, coalition government. All we're hearing out here is about pipelines and protests. We're not hearing anything about cannabis.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that the reason that the government in BC hasn't said anything yet is they don't have an answer people are going to like. We have a very touchy, weak government here that's running a coalition, and it's very, very possible that when they roll out these legislations, that there might be some kind of protest or even if handled poorly enough, a riot. in some of these places, or even, something that might constitute a large-scale march, a disruptive march, hopefully nothing destructive. But what's going to happen if people feel that their government is taking away their livelihoods, particularly in BC? People don't understand that cannabis is part of our economy. It's our number one cash crop in BC. It's what's paying people's bills, legal or not. It's the reality of things. And if they come in here heavy-handed and they think that that's going to work like they did in Ontario, I think you're going to see protests. I think that you're going to see some people go to jail. And I think that
I had to laugh. I have to laugh at these people that think that all these illegal growers out here are going to go and apply for microcrafting licenses. I said, what are you on? They've had the opportunity to become designated growers and licensed producers for the last 5 years. And most of them are saying, get stuffed. I am not going to, answer to the government, and they're going to stay illegal. Like the whole community of Greenwood, for Christ's sakes, where, grows and lives on pot. That's their whole economy out there. Do you think any one of those guys out there are going to say, hey, I'm going to go get a microcrafting license, shut everything I've got going on down now, spend $2 million for the government to say, yes, it's okay for you to do this? They're not going to do that.
And not only that, like one of the things that I say in my Ask Brynn Facebook page, there were the videos that I talked about was, people are going to have to make a decision. Are they going to go to these government stores and buy the product that's available there? Let's assume the product is good and that people want it. It's going to cost $400, $500, $600 to buy an ounce. Sure, you can carry 30 grams, but you're going to have a pretty good job to buy it. Or you're going to buy it from your neighbor. You're going to buy it from your neighbor for $100, and it's going to pay his bills or feed his kids or help him pay for his car or whatever else keeps the economy going. And when he buys a car or he pays his bills and he does things in the community is prospering from it. It's an industry like any other, and the peripheries like grocery stores and even things like hydroponic stores that are occupying spaces and paying rent and paying taxes. If you just destroy this cash crop that we have, and if they're successful at doing that, there could have a serious effect on the economy of not just the small communities in BC, but all the way through the province. And then what happens to all of the places like we're talking about Alberta and everything else supplying fuel to BC? What if we just can't afford it? Sure, you can bring it up to $2 a liter. You guys make lots of money out there. You guys will figure it out. But what if we don't? What if all of a sudden everybody in BC is 30% less wealthy because the economy is partly collapsed because there's several $1 billion cash that people are dumping into the economy here with no expectations of it ever returning back to them? They're not going to get a tax return for their illegal money. They know the money that they're spending goes to the community, goes to the whatever it is that they're doing, grocery stores, grow stores, whatever. I think that in BC it's a very touchy subject. And how is the federal government going to handle BC as a special case? They're going to have to fall in line somehow. There's too many unanswered questions. A friend of mine was talking to one of the higher ups in the Justice Department, and they admitted they're not ready. They're just simply not ready. There's too many unknowns, and they've never been put into a position where they didn't have all of the answers first. There's no such thing in the justice system or in the government system as, well, we'll kind of go along and figure it out as we go. It's just not designed that way. 2,000 years of government style, that's not how it works. But we blindly walked into this. It'll be okay. We'll let kids have a little bit. We'll make sure everybody has access. We won't charge people if they're going to have a doobie in them. But you don't take that doobie out in public. Don't. If you live in a condo, make sure you don't smoke it there. What the hell are you supposed to do?
Right, and that's exactly what we were talking about that in a previous show, actually, about in Quebec, how they're not going to allow certain places to be able to smoke in their townhouses, and they could just walk across the street and smoke it outside. And that's where we're going to break it down to. People aren't going to be able to smoke in their places. They're going to be and then you can't smoke in public because there's bylaws for smoking in public. This is not going to be great in many aspects, right?
Yeah, it's crazy how they're going to do it. They're going to base it on alcohol laws where you can do certain things. I read an article yesterday that the Nova Scotia government has said that, yes, you'll be allowed to smoke marijuana on licensed golf courses because golf courses you can drink on. Yeah.
I know before we had issues with even having events before with the liquor control. You can't have a liquor license where there's going to be cannabis. Well, right. We're going to go ahead and go forward with my event at a place where it is licensed. and we're going to see where that is going to lead us, because we're gonna push that envelope. We're gonna hold it in a licensed location where you can smoke out back. You can't smoke inside because of the smoking bylaws, of course. But it's a public place, and well, it's a private owned business. But I mean, we're gonna push the envelope on that. And with that being said, we're gonna have to wrap the show up. We've already come to the end already. Good grief.
Well, I will be there with you. I will be there with you to push the envelope, and it was an honor to be on today. I'm so glad that we connected the way we have, and let's do some more together and share and do good things for good people.
Absolutely, because this Kootenay area and this corner of British Columbia does exist. There is stuff that happens past Vancouver, people. There's stuff that goes on in Kelowna, Vernon, Peachland. There's places like Kamloops and Creston and Nelson and Cranbrook and Fernie and all kinds of little towns in this province besides just what goes on at the mainland. So let's shout out to Canadian or Cannabis for Children for Brynn here. And if you're interested in getting in touch with him about that, also to let everybody know that there's 420 events across the country in every little town that you can get to. Big cities, there, 420 this year might be our last kick at the can, guys. I'm hoping not. I'm hoping that that's not going to be the what we have to look forward to for the future. Again, I'd like to thank Brynn for being on my show. So can you give your shout out for that website again, Brynn, please?
CannabisForChildrenCanada.org.
Awesome. And I'd like to thank my sponsors, who are 12 High Chicks Magazine, MUM, Maritimers United for Medical Marijuana, Harvest Fest, July 24th, 25th, and 26th, out in Truro, Nova Scotia, Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners, and the Haley Rose Foundation. Y'all have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye. All right. Well, thanks very much, Brynn. We'll have to, get in touch and see if we can't get you, because I'm offering non-for-profit spots as well for sponsorship, right? So with that being said, I'm not charging the non-for-profits. Any, your names and your websites and stuff will just go on all the advertising for nothing. So
awesome.
Yeah. And then you guys can come out and put a booth out if you'd like to. That's cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's pretty much what I've been working with Deb at Maritimers United there. My mom runs a little dispensary as well as another partner of mine out there, and she really sort of took a kinship to what we were doing and trying to help some of the small communities. And again, she just sort of said, "You want to know what? You guys are in. You have a booth. You come do your thing." And wow, right on. And I've done this without spending more than $500 so far. I'm blown away.
Doesn't take money. We've been doing it for Canadian Therapeutic. We've done it for years without money. My groups, East Kootenay and Southern Alberta Cannabis Club, we run with no money. I'm starting this cup with $0 budget. I'm hoping that sponsors come in and that ticket sales will cover the cost of the event. I'm not looking to make any money. I just want to break even. You know what I mean? This is just so we can have some fun. I don't care if I make a dime off of it. I just want to break even. I want to cover the cost of the venue and the band and the comedian and, all the stuff that goes along with it and just have some fun. So, like I said, I'm not looking to profit off it either, which I don't think is, MUM doesn't either. I don't think Deb, that group doesn't look to make a big, huge profit off theirs. They've been doing it for small amounts too for many years. So.
Yeah, no, what a great group. I'm so happy that everybody's involved. I'm super excited that you and I connected and we had a chance to do this. Let's do some things together. Okay. As Al said, I'm not going to shut up either.
Excellent.
So, thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
I'm doing a show, man. Are we still on the air? We might still be on the air. Excellent. No. Okay. Well, I'll let you go. Thanks, Al. And thanks, Brynn. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Bye-bye.
So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a